Hello there and a very good morning. It's the 16th of March 2016. Indeed, a very significant day for us here at the Capital Maharaja organization. It was on a day like today, 3 years ago, that Newsfirst launched its first Gammadda initiative in the remote town of Sigirimulla in Dambulla district. 3 years on, Newsfirst decided that it was time that we take public service journalism to Sri Lanka. This is when we went into the rural villages of the north, south, the east, west, covering all 25 districts for the 25th program of the Gammadda program, and found out issues, problems faced by the people of Sri Lanka. In order to ensure that these issues, these problems were given solutions by the powers that be, by the authorities, by the elected public representatives that have been sent to Parliament by the franchise of the people. Our intention was to create a bridge between the people and the people, those who have been elected. So today's program will focus on these issues, finding solutions, youth unemployment. We have a very special guest in our studios. We will introduce him shortly, but before that, here's a report compiled by Newsfirst's Shamir Rasuldeen.
The road dusty, the sun bearing down on us with a vengeance. The road leads to Paru in deep Kenya, Trincomalee, where life is hard with or without the war that ended 7 years ago. The tsunami in 2004 wiped out the little hope they had. It is evident that the road has not seen a coat of tar in over 3 decades. This road is rarely used by outsiders. Those living here are neglected and unwanted, and the road bears testament to this. It is here that I met a mother who has no dreams. She admits that she can't either read or write.
படிக்கல என்ன படிப்பிக்கல எங்க அம்மா அப்பா வந்து என்ன வீட்டு வேலைக்கு விட்டு தான் வளர்த்தாங்க அப்பா செத்ததால இப்ப எங்களுக்கு எந்த கை தொழிலும் எனக்கு தெரியாது
A doctor in 20 years seems more like a dream under the present conditions they live in. However, what is promising is the courage to go against the tide. These untold stories are full of war, suffering and untold misery. Their deep eyes are like wells that hide these stories. It is in this backdrop we came across this shack, spotted by our driver Nihal, who also played the role of stringer from time to time. There was no welcome for us, everyone minding their own business. The house sent shivers down my spine. How can one possibly live inside this shack? I'm right now seated in the coastal belt of Paru, Kenya. Sand and a roof on top of my head. This is a very residence of an individual named Rajahan. He was displaced by the conflict. Now he has found safe haven in this small house. I couldn't help but notice how a pot of rice was being cooked inside this house, the only meal Rajahan can afford to his wife and 3 children, who have been living inside this shack for 6 years now. The Newsfirst Gammadda team promised to grant assistance to build a house. Seconds later, there was laughter and a warm goodbye. There is hardly anything to see here. These are parts of Sri Lanka that have been conveniently forgotten by the people and by respective governments. A land of no dreams. Shamir Rasuldeen, Newsfirst, Kenya, Trincomalee.
Well, our guest this morning is Minister of Skills Development and Vocational Training, Minister Mahinda Samarasinghe. Good morning to you, Minister Samarasinghe, and thank you very much for joining us this morning. The report you just saw was compiled by one of our journalists, and this was a common factor that we saw, a sense of hopelessness, a sense of disempowerment that was prevalent in almost all the districts that we went into on this campaign. As Minister of Skills Development and Vocational Training, what do you have to say about this? I mean, this position is something that we ourselves witnessed over the past 20 days.
Well, all governments have challenges, especially a country like Sri Lanka, which has just got out of a 30-year conflict and moving towards comprehensive reconciliation. There are economic challenges, there are social challenges, and these are challenges that are being met. But there are situations such as what you just showed in quite a number of villages, that is Sri Lanka. So the overcoming of the challenges needs to have political commitment. It needs to have political stability. It needs to have rapid economic growth, and this is exactly what our government is attempting to overcome.
Some of the issues that we saw were that some politicians hadn't even stepped into some villages which were very rural and in dire straits. So how do you suppose we could ensure accountability by these provincial politicians?
Well, I think civil society has to be further strengthened and empowered. We have a situation in Sri Lanka that the politicians by and large do not have to show accountability for these kinds of lapses because civil society has not been empowered to the extent that we see even in some of our neighboring countries such as India. There is accountability shown by politicians. If you take India, for example, when a train accident occurs, the first to offer resignation is the minister in charge of railways.
Shouldn't we set this precedent in Sri Lanka itself?
Yeah, so we need to, as I said, have a strategy to empower civil society. People should be able to get up and say enough is enough. Our village has not been developed, our roads have not been rehabilitated, our lives are miserable, our youth are unemployed. You need to pay attention, and if you don't pay attention, we are going to vote you out of office. That kind of thing doesn't happen in Sri Lanka yet. I mean, even the media, I believe, can be more empowered. Relatively speaking, today we find the media talking about, such as your company, exposing these kinds of shortcomings, and that should be the order of the day. We expect that from the media, and media freedom in that context is of utmost importance. Now, the Freedom of Information Bill that the government is planning on bringing before Parliament will, I believe, further strengthen civil society. Civil society will be empowered by this bill. The ordinary person can demand and receive information about the behavior of the government that he has voted into office. Transparency will be the order of the day. Government will have to make available to the general public of this country information on financial transactions. So these kinds of steps would be the stepping stone to ensure greater empowerment of civil society, and in turn the general public of this country would be able to hold their representatives accountable for their actions. So, I mean, I'm a part of a government that believes in collective responsibility. So there is no way that we can escape this responsibility of accounting for actions of the government as a whole. If we sit in cabinet, we may put forward our own viewpoints or our party viewpoint, but once a decision is taken, we take on collective responsibility. So it's not only individual accountability, it is accountability as a whole. The government as a whole should take on this collective responsibility and take on the collective accountability of its actions. So we are on the right track. I mean, we are a bit late compared to some of the countries in our region. Now, for example, India has had the Freedom of Information Act for some time. Bangladesh has a Freedom of Information Act. Even Pakistan has had a Freedom of Information Act. Even little Maldives has a Freedom of Information Act. We are a little bit late in that respect, but better late than never. So the government is committed to this. Previous government was not committed to this. Our present government is committed to ensuring further accountability, empowerment of civil society. So I think we have taken the right steps in the right direction.
Minister Samarasinghe, is our education system job ready?
Well, that needs also modifications. We have to emphasize more on employability rather than political patronage being offered to constituents, rewarding them for putting up posters and putting up flags at a time of an election, or supporting a politician, and then that politician takes on the responsibility of handing over jobs to their supporters. We have to move away from this and emphasize more on the employability aspect. This is what my ministry is trying to do. We have moved away from this political patronage idea, and we are investing in the youth of our country.
How so?
Well, there are several major policy decisions that we have taken. One is that our strategy is a demand-driven strategy rather than a supply-driven strategy. Meaning that the skills that we disseminate, the vocational training that we disseminate, will be in line with the labour market demand.
Right.
Now, if you look at our labour market, the bulk of the employment opportunities, even today, is in the private sector.
Yes.
Not in the public sector. Public sector is small and will get smaller as we go along. Hopefully, the main engine of growth, being the private sector, will expand further. And there will be more employment opportunities available in the private sector. So we have put in place a strong nexus between our ministry and the private sector, involving the private sector even in the stage of curriculum development, in our skills development programs and vocational training, so that the students that we churn out from the various vocational training exercises that we embark on will be able to compete on their own strength, meaning that their skill would be a skill that is demanded by the labor market, and they would be able to find employment on their own merits, not a politician handing out jobs, but their competitive strength been increased to the extent that they would be able to compete in the labor market and find suitable employment. That is one main policy decision that we have embarked on. The other is that we will not compromise on the excellence of education that we disseminate. So in that context, we have identified as a first step of upgrading the skills of the teachers who disseminate the skills that we want to disseminate, or the vocational training. For example, we believe that English communication skill is of paramount importance.
Yes.
Especially if you want to compete and find suitable employment in the private sector, you need to be able to communicate in English. I mean, not to the extent that you and I would be able to speak English, but they should be able to understand and survive in that kind of a job situation by being able to converse in English. So we are now assessing the level of education of teachers who are supposed to teach English in our 400 odd vocational training centers spread all over the country, and then upgrading that skill. It will not only be limited to English, it will also the strategy will look at upgrading their technical skills in other areas. It has to be industry orientated. I mean, we provide on-the-job training to our students, but the teachers themselves should be exposed to industry. They should be able to be familiar with the latest technology, so that at the classroom level, they would be able to disseminate this information, notwithstanding the on-the-job training that we will give, so that the students will be familiar with the latest technology. The other thing we are trying to implement is what is called inclusive education. Inclusive education means gender balance. 52% of the population of our country are females. But we find in the vocational training area, except for beauty culture and ICT, those kinds of areas, the demand from female for a vocational training in other areas that are in demand in the labor market must be upgraded, must be increased. So these are some of the main policy decisions.
I think
that we have embarked
that's
on.
a very interesting point, and Minister Samarasinghe, I'd like to draw your attention to that later on in the program. First, let's go in for a short commercial break. We'll be right back with Newsline.
Newsfirst, Newsline with Faraz Shaukat Ali. Welcome back to Newsline. We're in conversation with Minister of Skills Development and Vocational Training, Minister Mahinda Samarasinghe. Newsfirst, Stephanie Lazarus filed this report from Batticaloa about this, the plight faced by this woman. Have a look.
Bearing her oar and fishing gear, Shanta Kumari leaves her broken house with her 2 daughters in it at 10 a.m. every morning. Every step she takes when walking to the lagoon, her heart beats hard with anxiety as she grapples with doubt as to whether she will be able to find enough fish for the day. This lagoon is nestled in the dry and barren land of Vaunathivu in the Batticaloa district. Shanta Kumari says that she learned how to fish at the age of 15 and she has been fishing ever since. A mother of 2, left with no support, Shanta Kumari says that her husband, whom she thought would be her lifeline, is now mentally ill, entrusting her to bear the brunt of her family. When we found her and spoke to her, Shanta Kumari said that she would set out to the lagoon and would spend almost 5 hours a day in the scorching sun without having anything to eat, which is not a choice for her, but the only option she's left with to keep her children fed.
எனக்கு ரெண்டு பொம்பளை பிள்ளைகள் நான் இந்த மீன்பிடி தொழிலை நம்பித்தான் இந்த பிள்ளைகளுக்கு சாப்பாடு கொடுக்குறேன் அந்த மீன்பிடி தொழில் இல்லாம போனா சாப்பாடு இல்லை வீடு இல்லை இருக்க யுத்தத்தால இடிஞ்சு சிதறி போய் கிடக்கு இருக்கிறதுக்கு வீடும் இல்லை.
Scraping through every bit of strength that is left in her, Shantakumari strives every day to provide a better living for her two daughters.
The breadwinner of her house and a mother of two, she casts her net hoping to find plentiful fish, but her hopes are crushed every day as she finds fish amounting to 200 rupees a day. Will her hope be renewed? Will she find a better future? Only time will tell. Reporting for the Gam at the Door to Door initiative, this is Stephanie Lazarus.
We're in conversation with Minister Mahinda Samarsinghe. Minister Samarsinghe, you before the break you spoke of inclusive education, and it is evident that in Sri Lankan in the Sri Lankan job market, women do face certain issues. Also, the job market isn't that women friendly. So how do you suppose this could be changed? This culture needs to be changed.
Well, there has to be a cultural shift as well. Now, for example, I was in Jaffna 10 days ago,
Right.
where I opened in Chavakacheri the vocational training institute that we had put in place with German funding.
Okay.
And when I moved around inside the training center, I was going to the various workshops that are there, and I was asking them, is there a gender balance? How many women, how many males? And I found that in certain workshops, especially, for example, if you take the electricians who have been trained there, there were no women. But when we went to the ICT workshop, we found that the majority were women. So I asked the people there, why it's only in the ICT workshop that you have women and not in the other workshops? And they said, the Hindu culture is such that we don't encourage women to do these kinds of skills or develop these kinds of skills. So there are cultural challenges as well. I mean, we can't sort of impose on them that women should be also trained in certain areas that are exclusive domains of males in those areas. But we are investing heavily in the north and the east.
Right.
On the 15th of June, which is the International Skills Day,
Right.
His Excellency the President and the Prime Minister will open the Kilinochi training center, which was a German funded initiative. It's a huge national center that we are putting into place. There we are attempting to ensure an ethnic balance as well as gender balance in the intake of students. We are also discussing with the Australians in putting in place training center in the east for the hospitality industry. There again we want to ensure gender balance. We are mindful of the fact that there are a large number of war widows in the north and the east. I want to target them and ensure that they are given a skill which is a regular income generation avenue for them, not like the female that we just saw getting on the boat and going fishing and earning 200 rupees a day. Give them a skill. If they want a skill in the marine sector, then give them a skill where they can earn a decent wage. So we are conscious of the fact that there are such challenges, and we are proceeding on the basis of overcoming those challenges.
Okay. Minister Samarsinghe, well, on our last 3 minutes of the show, do you believe that Sri Lanka can progress in terms of employment, in terms of employability, especially given the fact that the ETCA agreement, there's a lot of controversy over that as well. There's a threat that Indian employees will come to Sri Lanka, take the jobs. Do you think that we can challenge all of this, and is there a program in place to ensure that Sri Lankan employees will be protected?
Yeah, I think we have an excellent opportunity that has been put into place in that for the first time in our political history, the two largest parties in this country have come together and formed the Government of National Reconciliation, thereby putting in place political stability in our country. Political stability is a prerequisite to attract not only foreign investment but also domestic investment. There are a number of challenges that we are facing on the economic front because of a downturn in the international economic environment. Our exports have been affected, foreign remittances have been going down, so this is affecting economic growth prospects. The budget deficit needs to be controlled so that the economic fundamentals are in place to attract further investment. We have an excellent opportunity to forge ahead. We are determined to do that. There is restoration of governance in our country. Foreign participation in economic investment will increase as a result of human rights being paid more attention, good governance being restored in our country, independent judiciary being put into place in our country. These are new criteria that foreign investors look at before they take investment decisions. So I think
so in conclusion, you think that our job market will be protected in spite of any foreign challenges?
Well, I mean, this agreement with India is still under discussion. I mean, the cabinet has not been informed of the final contents. We as SLFP, who are equal partners in this government, will have our own position in respect of this agreement. But the main thing is to ensure that we don't bring in foreigners who are taking over the jobs that are there for Sri Lankans who are capable of doing those jobs. In the past, we saw thousands of Chinese coming into Sri Lanka and even working on rehabilitation of roads. Now this is not on, but if there are certain areas where we need expertise from outside, then we don't see any reason why not, because after all, finally, we need to go in for rapid economic growth and sustainable development.
Well, on that note, we wrap up this edition of Newsline. We'll see you again, same time, same place, tomorrow. Have a great day ahead.